In the subway, a homeless person with a sheep's head and human body was begging. Not only were their clothes tattered, but their eyes were also blind and their hands were injured. At this time, a fair-skinned pig auntie walked by and looked down. Surprisingly, the beggar's bowl had quite a lot of money. At this moment, the pig auntie was seized by greed and kicked over the beggar's bowl with one foot. Upon closer inspection, she realized that the beggar was blind. She then shamelessly took the money and everything was witnessed by Mr. Deer, who was waiting for the subway. However, he remained silent. After boarding the train, the pig auntie kept nibbling on her bread while sitting next to a sleeping black chimpanzee. Mr. Deer sat across from the pig auntie and beside a self-entertaining monkey and a non-mainstream dressed Miss Mouse. Miss Mouse, with her thief-like appearance, locked onto the wallet in the monkey's pocket at first glance. She skillfully reached out her hand and was caught in the act by the pig auntie sitting opposite them. Miss Mouse calmly stared at the pig auntie, who dared not even make a sound. Then, Miss Mouse left the scene of the crime and walked towards the back of the train. In the back were a couple, Mr. Fox and Mrs. Gray Wolf, and a dejected bald eagle. At this moment, Miss Mouse locked eyes with Mr. Gray Wolf. However, Mrs. Fox seemed to sense their secret exchange of glances. Miss Mouse, who had just been composed and calm, dared not meet Mrs. Fox's gaze and could only pretend to smoke. Mr. Gray Wolf, cunning and lecherous, stared at Miss Mouse, who responded with a cutesy gesture. This made the cold and ruthless Mr. Gray Wolf reveal an even more sinister smile. The pig auntie, who was nibbling on her bread in the subway, suddenly choked. She was about to pass out when the sleeping black chimpanzee next to her was awakened by the commotion. Angrily, the chimpanzee pushed her down and then closed its eyes to go back to sleep. Mr. Deer, who was sitting across from them, witnessed it all. The kind-hearted Mr. Deer took out a bottle of water from his bag and gave it to the pig auntie to help her catch her breath. However, the awakened pig auntie did not appreciate his help and pushed Mr. Deer away. This scene amused the schadenfreude monkey, who laughed so loudly with his headphones on that he woke up the sleeping chimpanzee again. After being glared at by the chimpanzee, he immediately shut his mouth. At this time, the subway arrived at a station and it seemed that there was a collapse outside. After the doors opened, a beautiful Miss Deer walked into the train carriage. However, when people tried to enter afterwards, the black chimpanzee blocked the door and forcefully hit the switch to prevent other passengers from coming in. Mr. Deer, who wanted to stop him, only angered the chimpanzee even more. As a result, some people were unable to enter the carriage. When the train started moving again, Mr. Snake, who had just boarded, began to make advances towards Miss Deer. Mr. Deer, wanting to play the hero and save the damsel, walked up to Mr. Snake and glared at him. However, Mr. Snake, who was not afraid of boiling water even if the pig had died, did not back down. Mr. Deer reached out to stop him, but was spat in the face with venom. The gray wolf behind him was also hit. The enraged gray wolf suddenly went wild and a fight broke out in the carriage. Only the bald eagle, who was sitting at the back, watched them with a sinister look. The fight ended quickly with some people dead or injured. Miss Deer was helping Mr. Deer clean his wounds while the others were tending to their own injuries. It turned out that the bald eagle was waiting for them to weaken each other so that it could have the pig auntie as its dinner. When Mr. Deer opened his eyes, he saw Miss Deer helping him clean his wounds. The carriage was filled with dead and injured passengers. The bald eagle, who did not participate in the fight, was enjoying its meal. Mr. Deer slowly stood up as the train arrived at a station and there was a collapse outside. A puppy in swaddling clothes was barely alive and Mr. Deer couldn't open the door. He tried to use his antlers to pry it open, but this only irritated the black chimpanzee. The chimpanzee walked up and effortlessly pulled open the door. The puppy's life was hanging by a thread, and Mr. Deer quickly rescued it and handed it to Miss Deer. However, the train doors were about to close, and the chimpanzee urged him to get on the train. Mr. Deer turned his head and saw that there was still a living person outside. He hesitated, and in that moment, the train doors mercilessly closed. He could only bid farewell to Miss Deer with reluctance. As Mr. Deer turned around, he saw that the rooftop stones were about to fall. He rushed over to try to pull the injured person out, but the collapse was too fast. He was unable to save the person and sacrificed his own life in the process. The next day, the sun rose as usual, and Mr. Deer, buried in the rubble, moved slightly. The movie ends here. The various animals in the subway represent different personalities. There are no good people in the gloomy subway. The pig auntie is greedy, cowardly, and afraid of trouble. Miss Mouse is a principle-less scoundrel. The monkey is a cold-hearted schadenfreude. The chimpanzee is a violent and irrational brute. The gray wolf is a womanizer who enjoys playing both sides. The bald eagle likes to reap the benefits without putting in any effort. Mr. Snake always causes trouble. Only Mr. Deer still has a shred of warmth and kindness. He used his kindness to successfully save Miss Deer and the puppy. In the end, he also moved the irritable chimpanzee.